All praise, all glory, all honors most certainly due to the Most High, the God of the patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and peace to you in the name of Jesus. This is your brother Elisha Israel of the household of faith. Blessing each and every time that I can come before you to preach the word of God, and never do I count it as a light thing to do so. About the household of faith, every Sabbath at Indiana University Northwest Library Conference Center Room LC 105. Again, that's the household of faith. We meet every Sabbath at Indiana University Northwest Library Conference Center Room LC 105 at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time, Gary, Indiana, 3400 Broadway. We invite you to come out and worship with us. You can hear the uncut, unadulterated word of God. You can also live stream our Sabbath day services right here on the YouTube channel or on israelteach.org. We also have a radio broadcast every Sunday at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time on WLTH 1370 AM, the Region's Choice. Also, brothers and sisters, we'll be in Lafayette this Sunday. The following 2 Sundays, we'll be out there. Of course, we observe the Sabbath, but we'll be out there just bringing the word to people. And we were out there actually today. And I just like to thank those sisters, Sister Joy, Sister Patricia, who are in Lafayette, who just did an outstanding job in their hospitality as well as their fervor to reach people. Quite frankly, I mean, sometimes you see that zeal and that fervor, and it's just a blessing. I also like to thank my sister Marion, who was also a great help in just going around passing out flyers to people, flagging people down, letting them know that we'll be in that area. So, it was a blessing. It was a good trip. So we got back around, went out there early this morning and got back around about maybe close to 6 this evening. So I just like to thank them for all the work that they did. Now, I want to talk today about what today is, right? And this day dealing in this Halloween madness. We just lost in the sauce, as they say. We are people who don't even understand what we're doing when we deal with this day from a cultural perspective or from one of a faith perspective. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to deal with this, and I want to look at some things before we get started. I just want to look at right now in relation to this day, and just to show you how mad our people are, how lost we are as a people. Look at this. This is you can see it here. This is what's going on right now in Chicago, brothers and sisters. They say the weekend, it's Halloween weekend, right? Everybody getting their Halloween on, if you will. A weekend in Chicago marks the deadliest of year with 17 people fatally shot, 17 killed. That's not all the shootings now, but 17 people killed over the weekend, not in count. And then more than likely, there'll probably be some more today. But that's what's going on. That's what's going on. It was so bad. It says the shootings over the last weekend came in Chicago. Police shifted resources to accommodate the crowds in Wrigley Field. But superintendent said the department was not caught short-handed. And he tells why. He said we had canceled days off as well as required 12-hour shifts over the entire weekend. So he said the resources were out there. So it says the violent final weekend of October pushed homicides to 614 as of midnight Sunday, in excess of 200 more than the same earlier period in the most of the 10-month mark since 1997. In addition, shooting incidents for the year are closing in on 3,000, a 46% jump from 2,044 a year earlier, according to department statistics. At least 3,600 people, more than 3,600 people have been shot. That's 1,100 more people And then last, you see this, and just to show you some of the pictures from this. Look at this madness. Look at our people. Lost in the sauce. You got a mask on, at some, looks like maybe a Halloween party, and somebody gets killed. You know, and we just ignorant as far as what God requires of us and what we should be doing. And I was at this, I was had an event years ago, didn't know God, and at an event where it was shot up on Halloween. Around that time, people murdered all around. I was in the crossfire, thought I was gonna die, could have died. But yeah, this is what's going on amongst our people. That's what's going on amongst our people. Just madness. I wanted to show you something else. Another thing that I saw, another one that I thought was, and this is before I realized how many people were killed in Chicago. I just wanted to look at this real quick. This is just, let's see. Let me find it for you. Forgive me for being slow on this thing. But the movies, brothers and sisters, just something simple. This right here shows you that we have lost our minds. Right here. Boo. A Madea Halloween. Now you got this man who has done so much to destroy the male image and his consistent portrayal as a woman, cross-dressing, which is against the law of God, effeminized, and this movie, the reason I'm showing you this is because this movie, Boo, A Madea Halloween, is beating all movies at the box office right now. Now, Negroes, I'm sure, lost Negroes, like I said, we lost in the sauce, going to see Boo, A Madea Halloween, but they letting that turn a flop. How you let Birth of a Nation flop? I know it was some shenanigans going on with movie theaters, and because I saw it on one show. A brother was talking about how he called there, went up there. They told him the show was sold out, and he went into the show and it was only 3 people in there, about 3 or 4 people in there. So he recorded him talking to the people at the movie theater. I know that they switched times around and made it extremely difficult to find out when the show was being aired in my area. And even when you called up there, they said they're too busy to answer the phone. They wouldn't even answer the phone. So you had to make a trip up there to see if you can get in. So, and the movie, they say, flops. Then it has all these other standards. They say, well, since it flopped, it can't get an Oscar, which I don't think we should care nothing about as a people. But, and when was that ever a criteria as far as a great movie? But you talking about a revolutionary pastor, one of our people who attempted to try to do something for our people, and that flops, and yet Negroes piling into the movies to see Boo, A Madea Halloween. It just show you what they'll perpetuate and what they'll push for our people. And then it also shows you that we are lost in the sauce. So we dealing in this madness. I come home from Lafayette today, and what do I see? I had never seen so many people. I had never seen so many people in my neighborhood trick-or-treating. I mean, I saw several groups. I turned the corner going on my block. I see several groups. I saw at least 40 people in a small area trick-or-treating, dressed up and all kind of stuff. And I mean, they were mobbing, as we used to say back in the day. And this day, brothers and sisters, is when you look at it, it's not of God, just like the other pagan days. So what I want to do real quickly is just go over some history of this day, because we definitely are lost in the sauce. But let's go over what Halloween is. Okay, so I just want to read you some things about Halloween. Okay, let's see here. This is from Halloween and Commemorations of the Dead. It's a book on page 8. It says, historians and folklorists agree that a fusion of customs probably occurred during the 400 years the Romans ruled the Celts, with the Celtic festival of Samhain emerging with the Romans festival of Feralia, and also with Pomona. Okay, so Pomona was a Roman goddess, okay, of gardens and orchards. Okay, her symbol was the apple. All right, and let's go to something else. I want to read something else, because Julius Caesar wrote about the Druids and the Celts. Okay, and the Druids are significant because they are the priest class of those people. Okay, and let's see what he says about them. He says, and these people that were dealing in this worship, he said they were extremely devoted to superstitious rites, often engaging in human sacrifices by burning humans. The Druids, what they would do is they would make human sacrifices, animals too, but a lot of human sacrifice. They make this big effigy in the form, wicker work in the form of a human being, and then attach live human beings to it as sacrifices, and then burn all those people alive. I mean, these were massive structures that they would build. They tie people to them. A lot of times it'd be criminals, but it could be innocent people too. Okay, so let's look at this particular day. And the Druids, again, this is all from Satan. This is let's just read about the Celtic New Year. Okay, the Celtic New Year began on November 1st. Now, it was on this date the Celtic festival Samhain would be celebrated. Okay, Samhain was the Celts' god of the dead. See, this is all about the dead. So you think about it, you look at our people, and on this day, around this time, you done had all these shootings. I'm not saying it's related. What I'm saying is this is death on so many levels. Death on such spiritually, you're dead if you're dealing with this. Now you go into a party, people getting shot up, and you on the day leading up to the day that's dealing directly with the dead. So it was believed that the night before their new year, October 31st, the veil between life and death was thinnest. So that's what this was about, right? That's why all the divination and the dealing with the dead happens on this day, because again, they thought that at this time that the separation or the veil between life and death was thinnest. On Halloween night, the Celtic witches, male and female, they thought that was the greatest chance to make contact with the dead. So they would try to contact the dead through meditation, sacrifice, other forms of witchcraft. And it is the number one for witches. It is their day. It is their number one day. So that's the history and part of Halloween. You have to ask yourself the question from a just culturally, why are Negroes celebrating a Celtic festival? These are Irish people. These are Irish people. And how did it get to America? That particular festival, well, we'll get there. We'll get there. I want to read before I get there. I want to read something about this. This is Deuteronomy 18. And we're going to pick it up at verse 9. It says, when thou art come into the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee, thou shalt not learn to do after the abomination of those nations. See, we're not supposed to follow these other nations. We weren't supposed to follow them then. That's what got us kicked out of the land in the first place. And now you look at us today. We following these other nations. We're following their spiritual systems, and it has destroyed us as a people. Modern day Christianity is their religious system. It's based. You turn back that veil and you see sun worship. Yes, that's why they go to church on Sunday. That's why they're dealing with Christmas. That's the birth of the S-U-N. They're dealing with Easter, which is named after Ishtar, Astarte, Ishtar, the false fertility goddess. They're dealing with the Trinity. That's pagan. It's a Trinity in Babylon, in Egypt. That's all paganism. That's all false. But that's what our people are dealing with. So it says, there shall not be found among you anyone that maketh this son or daughter to pass through the fire. So the people of the land that went in was sacrificing their children, human sacrifice to the god Molech. And Israel got caught up in that. But if you look back in the history of what was the precursor or the origins of Halloween, that's sowing, what were they doing? Again, dealing with the dead. What were the Jews doing? Sacrificing human beings. You're taking the customs, you're taking the religious practices of a people who deal in human sacrifice, and you're taking it for yourself. You have no idea where these things come from. It is asinine for us, even just again from a cultural perspective, to deal with this foolishness. And then it says something here: there shall not be found among you anyone that maketh the son or daughter to pass through the fire, or that useth the divination, or an observer of times, or an enchanter, or witch. You're not supposed to be dealing with that darker power, because that's what it is. And when you think about it, brothers and sisters, there is a power there that people deal with. I give an example in the scriptures when Moses and Aaron came forth before Pharaoh, and he put down his staff and said, behold, the power of God. And he set it down, and it turned into a serpent. Hey, the Egyptian magicians did the same thing. Now, their staffs were swallowed up by, well, their rods were swallowed up by the rod laid down by Moses and Aaron, but nevertheless, they had power. You have to ask yourself, where does power coming from? So it says, don't be a charmer or a consulter with familiar spirits. What is that? That's somebody who's dealing like the witch of Endor. You dealing with an unclean angel, brothers and sisters. You're not talking to the dead. The dead, we don't know anything. But that's what you're dealing with. You're dealing with a consulter of familiar spirits. And they peep and murmur. I've seen somebody do that before with my own eyes. It said, or a wizard, right? A wizard is a male witch or a necromancer. But you want to dress your children up in these costumes. You want to, I saw several kids, like two or three dressed up like witches today. How you gonna dress up like a witch and the Lord tell you that you should even allow that among you? Because in verse 12 he said, for all that do these things are an abomination unto the Lord. We got to start thinking about what we're doing as a people. And what are they teaching us in these churches? So it said, thou shalt be perfect with the Lord thy God. We want to be perfect with God. We don't want to deal with this tomfoolery. It's to our detriment, brothers and sisters. This is read something here in 22 and verse 18. He said about witches. So he said, in the necromancer, somebody dealing with the dead, trying to deal with the dead. He said, don't do that. Then he said something. He said in Exodus 22 and 18, thou shalt not suffer a witch to live. See, he said, man, don't allow a witch to even live among you. He's talking about capital punishment. Then but we are going totally astray as a people. And that's why we can't prosper as a people, because we continually continue over and over and over again, just simply deny God. We simply deny God over and over and over again, but we expect things to be well with us. I'm going to read a little bit more. About how this came into what became Christianity. Okay? Because the Romans, we read about a lot of times from the Druids, from Julius Caesar and what he wrote. Okay, so you had the rise of the Roman Catholic Church, which was simply a continuation of the Babylonian mystery religious system. And what they did was they simply co-opted and or incorporated all the paganism into the Roman Catholic Church in order to bring in the pagans. See, the pagans were dealing with December 25th at that time. They understood that was the birth of the SUN. So it's no big deal. See, on the surface, you see Jesus, but you can't read Jesus was born on December 25th. So when you peel back the surface, what do you see? Oh, you see sun worship. You see evergreen trees. Oh, you see mistletoe. Oh, okay. The Brumalia. That's what you see. So let's go to well, I just want to make another point of how this got incorporated. All right, because in Rome there was a pantheon, just like there's a pantheon, meaning there's a bunch of gods. You might have a chief god and goddess, and then you have a bunch of other gods, god of war, god of love, etc. Right? So there was a pantheon in Rome, and then let's see something that happened in 609, 610. Pope Boniface the Fourth dedicated the Roman pantheon to the Virgin Mary and all Christian martyrs. And the Virgin Mary was called what? That was the Queen of Heaven. That was called the Queen of Heaven. Why was she called the Queen of Heaven? Because they were worshiping the Queen of Heaven already. Again, this is all just this is just simply to bring this system that was already in place. So in 1835, Gregory, the Pope Gregory, who did a lot to bring in falsehood, Pope Gregory expanded the feast to include All Saints and changed the date of this Feast of All Saints to line it up with the Celts' New Year of November 1st. See, so if you're a pagan and you come from that particular perspective, you understand what it's about. So all these saints, see, you can't read where it's you're supposed to be venerating saints. Where you read it at? They became a saint. Such and such became a saint. Where you read, you're supposed to do that at. See, these people just do what they want to do. They do what they want to do. I'm gonna read something here. This is from a book called The American Book of Days. It said a few holidays have a stranger or more classical history than Halloween. It is the vigil of All Saints Day observed by Roman Catholics. However, some of the customs traditional to Halloween hark back to matter that Christianity for centuries has adamantly opposed. But Christianity, it says it opposes it, but it really don't. Because how you get Sunday, how you get Christmas, how you get Easter, how you get Lent, right? So this is a book about that. The pagan origins of Christian holidays. So it says that these things are opposed: black magic, fortune telling, ghosts, witches, goblins, fairies, and so on. Okay, it is generally so those things on the surface are not dealt with. It is generally accepted that Halloween, in its more popular or folk aspects, represents a combination of Druidic practices and classical Roman religious beliefs. So you got what was going on with the Celts and the Druids, okay, and what's going on with Rome, all right, their festivals, and then the Roman Catholic Church, all that together, okay. Halloween has clear connections with the rites of the Druidic priests in the pre-Roman, pre-Christian Celtic communities, especially in Ireland and Scotland. How did that particular practice get to the United States? It got to the United States through the mass immigration of Irish that came over here during the potato famine. They came over here and they brought that custom with them. Because a lot of things, when you look at the history of the United States, a lot of things weren't even allowed. Like Christmas wasn't even, they felt that was pagan. It wasn't even celebrated until the 1800s, well into the 1800s. That's just an example. Okay, so that wasn't celebrated in like colonial America. It came again around the time of the 1840s is when you had this custom be brought over. Okay, now one thing too is people try to say, you know, in the church now, they understand that it's pagan, and they try to replace it with, they call it Reformation Day, because that was the day that Martin Luther posted his 95-point thesis on the Castle Church in Wittenberg. Okay, that was on October 31st, 1517. But you don't find Protestantism in this Bible. You don't find Catholicism in this Bible. I'm talking about that you should be worshiping. Because it talks about Mystery Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. Right? So you want to celebrate Reformation Day. Well, how about this? Don't celebrate Reformation Day, because how you going to celebrate something and then, because see, they talking about Halloween. These same people talk about Halloween, but they celebrate Christmas. Listen, if you're going to celebrate Christmas and Easter, you might as well deal with Halloween. If you're going to deal with Sunday worship, you might as well. But let's look at something here. This is Colossians 2, and we're going to pick it up at verse 16. It says, let no man therefore judge you in meat or in drink or in respect of a holy day or the new moon or of the Sabbath days. You're supposed to be honoring the Sabbath days. Israel as a people. See, you saw the sister with the mask, the brother out there with the mask, they arguing with the police. Why are you out there dealing in that mad? We dealing in mad because we lost. But God gave us laws, statutes, and commandments. He gave us days we supposed to observe, and he throughout our generations, and he tells us what they are. It says, which are a shadow of things to come, but the body is of Christ. See, Saturday, or what the Sabbath is, because that's what we call the Sabbath, okay, which is what it's called in Scripture, the seventh day, it means rest, and it points to a time of rest. That's what it points to. It points to a time of rest. The Bible says, it says, well, my rest shall be glorious. The Bible talks about entering into that rest. The Passover points to how we have to be passed over to escape the wrath of God by the blood of Christ. He's the Passover lamb. The Feast of Unleavened Bread points to how we need to eat the unleavened or the uncut word of God, straight as it is. The Pentecost points to the resurrection of the saints. The trumpets points to all the things that are going to occur at the sound of a trumpet. The resurrection is occurring at the sound of a trumpet. The second coming of Christ is occurring at the sound of a trumpet. And the regathering of his people is referring to, is happening at the sound of a trumpet. And I just read a message from somebody who left a message talking about, I'm saying, God, I'm going to get him. I'm going to get him. Talking about, I'm saying God is dumb because I'm saying he don't realize that his people were gathered in 1948. I'm going to show you that that's a fraud. I'm going to show you that that's a fraud. And I'm going to expose your ignorance. Because it's time out for games. It's too late in the day. So I'm going to show you, and then showing you, I'm going to edify others so we can stop this nonsense about what was going on in 1948. And the fraud that his people have been regathered right now. Biggest hocus pocus going. Biggest okey doke going. His people are in these ghettos. His people are in these hoods. His people are in these projects I was walking through earlier today, lost. In captivity. His people are like them brothers I was talking to today who had just got out the joint. That's where his people at. That's where his people at. These hypocrites. I'm going to get him, though. I got to get him. I got to get him. Because you didn't say it, I said that God was dumb. And we're going to find out who ignorant. But let's look at some of these traditions. I got to get him. But let's look at some of these traditions. Because, again, you need to find out where these things come from. What are you doing exactly? All right. So let's look at these. One is these bonds. Oh, maybe I'll look up here. Hold on 1 second. Yeah, I'm gonna pick it up in this book, Pagan Origins of Christian Holidays. We'll pick it up on page 66 in the second paragraph. It says, after the emergence of Christianity, sowing was still observed to supplant sowing. Pope Boniface IV designated May 13th as All Saints Day in honor of the dead saints. However, this was not sufficient to completely thwart the deeply entrenched sowing festival. So in 1835, Pope Gregory transferred All Saints Day to November 1st. We read that, all right? Sowing, which was celebrated the night before, eventually was called All Hallows Eve and later became Halloween. So that's how you get the name. In 1080, the Catholic Church established November 2nd, All Souls Day. And when they was dealing with sowing, I read that was a 3-day thing. So you got October 31st, November 1st, November 2nd. That's what, again, this is all just simply stamping the name of Jesus, stamping, you know, in this case, the saints on these days. But this is all about the dead, brothers and sisters. So it said established November 2nd, All Souls Day, to honor the dead who are not considered saints. On All Souls Day, it was common for the poor to go a-souling. This consisted of going door to door and requesting simple pastries called soul cakes. In exchange, the poor would pray for the soul of home dwellers, dead relatives that were in purgatory. Now, you know, purgatory is not biblical. This is something the Catholics were doing. Many believe that this is the origin of trick-or-treating. Now, but it is also, I've also read that they're dealing with, you know, it was like if you didn't leave something for, when trick-or-treat didn't leave something for the soul, or didn't have something so-called for that, then you would be tricked by those in the spiritual world, or something bad would happen to you. So let's see. Making jack-o'-lanterns originated from Irish folklore. So when you get jack-o'-lanterns, like one sister was telling me, hey, she didn't deal with the with Halloween, and what they do, they took a pumpkin, they threw it at her house and did it in her garage door, right? They deal with pumpkins, they deal with jack-o'-lanterns. One sister was down there, she put a note on her door. She said, you need to come to the event, or something to the effect like you need to come to the event that we hosting to find out why we don't celebrate Halloween. Oh, well, we don't celebrate Halloween. Please don't knock on this door. We don't celebrate Halloween. You need to come to this event that we having to understand why we don't do that, right? So it said one common myth was that there was a drunkard named Stingy Jack. Jack had an infamous reputation for his silver tongue and evil deeds. According to one version of the tale, Jack was able to trick the devil into climbing the tree. A bunch of foolishness, right? He then placed a cross on the tree, which prevented the devil from climbing down. Again, foolishness. Jack made a deal with the devil that he would let him down if he would never take his soul. The devil agreed, and Jack removed the cross. When Jack died, he was prevented from entering heaven. Again, foolishness. You're not going to heaven. It says, and also barred from hell. Nobody's in hell right now, the lake of fire. Then it said, Jack, it's going to be the beast and the false prophet there first. That's after the Lord come back. And then Satan and his angels going to go in. Right? So it's not like he's there now. Jack had no light to see his way. Mockingly, the devil gave Jack an ember that had been lit with one of the everlasting flames of hell. Again, foolishness. Jack carved out the inside of a turnip and placed the ember inside of it. See, when they dealt with, when they were carving out pumpkins, now they used to carve out turnips. Okay? And it was much easier to get pumpkins in this land, so they just started dealing with pumpkins. When the Irish migrated to America, they brought this custom of making jack-o'-lanterns with them. However, in America, pumpkins were more available and replaced the turnip. So that's where you get the carving out. Again, that comes from the Celts. Why are we dealing with that? The customs that have been associated with Halloween, such as witchcraft and sorcery, demonstrate the holiday as antithetical to the worship of God. Now let's look at something else. These black cats. Where did the black cat come from? The Druids believed that it was a spirit of somebody in the black cat. And they would sacrifice it. They were bloodthirsty. They were bloodthirsty. They would sacrifice the black cat. Because you think about, I remember that. I can remember thinking as a kid, oh man, a black cat, that means bad luck. But where that come from? That came from these people. They thought they were symbolic of the spirit of evil. Bobbing for apples. That's dealing with the fertility god, Pomona, that I was talking about. That was also from Roman. So you had the Jews and the Celts, then you had the Roman festivals, then you had the Catholic Church, all that together. And now you got what? Years later, you got Halloween. So it said they also, so bobbing for apples, that was apples symbol of fertility. What they would do, they bob for these apples, and whoever got one first, they'd be the one to get married next. Okay, that was a divining ritual. And you got Negroes even bobbing for apples, about to drown trying to bob for an apple. But that's not our culture, brothers and sisters. What are we doing? We got to ask ourselves the question: what are we doing? Let's go to this one place, John 4:24. John 4, and we're gonna pick it up. We're gonna read one verse. It's something we should understand. You can't just make up your own thing. This is John 4:24. It says, God is a spirit, and they that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. But let me go up a little bit. At verse 22, it says something. It says, ye worship, ye know not what. We know what we worship, for salvation is of the Jews. Then it says, but the hour is coming, and now is when the true worshipers shall worship the Father, which is in heaven. Right? Let me plug this in before I lose all power in this thing. Yeah, there we go. Then it says, but the hour cometh, and now is when the true worshipers shall worship the Father in spirit and in truth, for the Father seeketh such to worship him. So that's what he wants. He wants genuine worship. He said, God is a spirit, and they that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth, brothers and sisters. You can't just do your own thing. If you do it, it's to your own detriment. It is to your own detriment. Something else I wanted to read. I don't know. Something else I wanted to read. I want to read something else about these where these costumes came from. Like I said, I came home and I saw all these people dressed up. And it says something here. This is just something you need to know. Halloween masks and costumes were used to hide one's attendance at pagan festivals or in the tradition of shamanism and other forms of animism, to change the personality of the wearer to allow for communication with the spirit world. That's what they were doing. And even right now, when people, even for example, when people dress up like certain things, they try to take upon the personality of that individual or the characteristic, whatever characteristic of whatever they're dressed up as. Start making faces and doing all these things, but it was much deeper back here. Okay. Here, costumes could be worn to ward off evil spirits. On the other hand, a costume wearer might use a mask to attract and absorb the power of the animal represented by the mask and costume worn. So that's what was going on with the costumes, brothers and sisters. And they're dealing with the dead on this day. They're dealing with the dead on this day. Again, this is the day that was believed that the veil between the spiritual world, the dead and the living, was thinnest. I want to read something to you, brothers and sisters, about the dead. I'm not going to hold you too much longer. This is Ecclesiastes. See, this is just show you what we're dealing with. The madness that our people are dealing with. It say this is an evil. This is Ecclesiastes 9:3. It says this is an evil among all things that are done under the sun, that there is one event unto all. Yea, also the heart of the sons of men is full of evil, and madness is in their heart while they live, and after that they go to the dead. So the evil thing is that man dies. He said, from dust thou art, to dust shalt thou return. Man has been dying. Then it said, for to him that is joined to all the living, there is hope. For a living dog is better than a dead lion. For the living know that they shall die, but the dead know not anything. Neither have they any more reward, for the memory of them is forgotten. Also their love and their hatred and their envy is now perished. Neither have they any more portion forever in anything that is done under the sun. They don't have, you are not communicating with the dead. You can get your Ouija board out, you can do all that madness. I wouldn't advise it. But what I'm saying is, whatever you're trying to do, you're not dealing with the dead. Now, you might be dealing with some unclean spirit, but you are not dealing with the dead, because the dead don't know anything. The dead don't know anything. It says in Ecclesiastes 3 in verse 19, for that which befalleth the sons of man befalleth beasts, even one that thing befalleth them. As the one dies, so dieth the other. Yea, they have all one breath, so that a man hath no preeminence above a beast, for all is vanity. I'll go into one place, all are of the dust, and all turn to the dust again. Right? That's where you're going, to the dust. You're not dealing in any with anybody. That's like a brother I was talking to today on the street. He said, yeah, you know, when we energy, you know, our soul. I said, where you get that from? Our soul don't die. I said, where you get that from? He couldn't tell me. See, when people were talking about the soul and the energy don't die, that's Eastern. That's Hinduism. That's Buddhism. That's associated with reincarnation. On one hand, he talking about the Bible, but where you get your soul, that your soul flowed off, you can't read that in the Bible. It said, "In the Lord formed man of the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul." You go back to the dust into the time of the resurrection. So it said, who knoweth the spirit of man that go upward and the spirit of the beast that go downward to the earth? Is that talking about your spirit floating up and then one floating down? That's talking about the breath. Man walk upright, a beast on all fours, brothers and sisters. And that's what that's talking about. So that's a little bit on Halloween and the madness that's going on in our people right now. We in a really bad state. And it was just, I don't say it was eye-opening. We just in the same condition everywhere you go. Yeah, everybody I talked to down there, the 2 days I went down there 2 days in the last 4 days. Every time I went down there, the people were going to church. They didn't know the name of the church, what the church teach, what's the denomination. They didn't know the denomination of the church. They was just going because they felt, well, I gotta go. And a lot of people I was with, they said, I ain't going nowhere because I ain't trying to deal with that foolishness. But they, even though those people, they didn't know what to do, right? And then you got some that was so, like one brother, like when I was talking about the soul, he's so spiritual. It was funny, not funny. It's sad because he doing all this talking. He like, man, but you know, that's just love. You know, I said, well, I explained to him what is love. Love is the keeping of the commandments in the Bible, right? That's what I was showing him. And then he said, but if I love, but I'm not gonna steal from you, I'm not gonna kill you. Then, you know, you're not gonna do all these things. That's true. That's the stuff that you can have in your conscience. That's in your conscience, right? That you could that's pertaining to your brother or your sister. What you're not gonna do. But what about the laws pertaining to God? How do you serve God? See, and that's the thing. See, you could be talking about loving your neighbor and all that. That's good. Absolutely. One of the greatest commandments is love thy neighbor as thyself. Because if you love him again, you're not going to steal from him. You're not going to lie on him. You're not going to backbite. You're not going to sleep with his wife. You're not going to murder him. You're not going to do those things. But see, you can not do that, but then you can still be involved in this pagan worship because you don't know what God feel about it. And see, that's what he didn't understand. And he was doing all this talking around. And I said, but how do you know what God requires? Because us, we need to get back to this book and find out not just the laws pertaining to your fellow man, but also the commandments pertaining to God and how to worship him. Because again, you can do those things and then, like he said, I got to go get my kid. Well, they about to go trick-or-treating. So if you go on trick-or-treating, you got to think, what do the Lord feel about that? We need to get some understanding, brothers and sisters. And with that, I want to say peace to you. Again, we'll be out there in Lafayette on Sunday, November 6th, as well as the 13th. Okay. And just have a call out meeting at those 2 times to see what's happening there. And that's from 1 to 5 at 627 South Street, Tippecanoe County Public Library, Tippecanoe County Public Library, 627 South Street, Lafayette, Indiana. With that, brothers and sisters, I want to say peace. Keep the faith.